When Nick Saban decided to shock the college football world when he announced his retirement in January, many wondered who would replace the legendary head coach that turned Alabama into a juggernaut over the past few years. For years, many thought former Alabama walk-on and Clemson head coach Dabo Swinney would be the easy pick to replace Saban when that fateful day finally came to be. But when Saban made his decision to retire, Dabo's name was not really being thrown around. Instead, names that were swirling around the Alabama job during their swift coaching search included Oregon head coach Dan Lanning, Florida State head coach Mike Norvell, Ole Miss head coach Lane Kiffin, Texas head coach Steve Sarkisian, and Washington head coach Kalen DeBoer. Alabama was coming off a heartbreaking overtime loss in the college football playoff semifinals to Michigan and had a loaded roster returning for this year, as long as they didn't lose everyone to the transfer portal. The man chosen to replace Saban, Kalen DeBoer, has the Crimson Tide rolling heading into a huge matchup this week against Georgia. This is a story of how Alabama landed DeBoer and how they have stayed towards the top of college football. But before we get into this, if you enjoy college football content like this, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Also, let me know how you would rank the Kalen DeBoer hire out of 10 in the comment section below. When Nick Saban retired, Athletic Director Greg Byrne promised the players he would have a new coach in place within 72 hours. Would instead be done in less than 50 hours, with Byrne explaining to ESPN back in March. It ended up being 49. I thought I would beat the 72-hour window, but wanted to give myself some padding. Byrne knew how big of a hire this would be, explaining, when you're approaching a historic transition like that, you think about when Coach Bear Bryant retired, when John Wooden retired, but it's all different now because of the transfer portal and NIL. But from an impact on a university and the sport itself, it's a big change as there has been in a long time. Chris Lowe wrote back in an article how Alabama moved from Nick Saban to Kalen DeBoer in 49 hours at 6:06 p.m. Eastern on January 12th. Byrne posted a photo on social media with smoke rising from a chimney, like the Vatican does when there's a new pope. Except this time it was a chimney of a Tuscaloosa barbecue joint, confirming that Washington's Kalen DeBoer was Saban's replacement. Saban had mentioned his career was coming to an end to Byrne back in 2022, telling him, "Greg, this is getting more and more difficult on me. I'm not ready to do it now, but we're going to have to start evaluating this more on a year-to-year basis." Saban saw his age was starting to become a factor when hiring assistants, having gone through 7 offensive coordinators in 11 years, and seeing 7 assistants leave after the 2018 season because people wanted assurance he was still going to be there. After that conversation, Byrne and his staff began researching head coaching hires over the past 25 years from the winningest 25 programs. You want to be prepared when Saban chose to retire, rather than scrambling at the last minute to try to save a roster. Through his research, he found that 75% of the time, schools were basically choosing between Group of 5 head coaches, Power 5 coordinators, or NFL coordinators, explaining that's not necessarily a negative. When it comes to the theory that you're going to be able to hire just whoever you want, the percentages don't support that. When Saban made his decision, Byrne contacted Joe Namath, Mark Ingram, Jalen Hurts, and Devontae Smith to get their perspective and to get information from what they would want as a player. Byrne wanted a proven head coach who won on a big stage and knew how to develop players. Dan Lanning was the hot name during the early part of the search after serving as an assistant on the staff in 2015 under defensive coordinator Kirby Smart, and joined Smart a few years later at Georgia. But according to athletic director Greg Byrne, there were 2 coaches Alabama was seriously considering, DeBoer and Mike Norvell. Norvell was coming off an undefeated regular season and an ACC championship at Florida State, and saw the Seminoles get snubbed by the College Football Playoff Committee. Instead of taking the Alabama job, Norvell instead decided to sign a lucrative contract extension at Florida State. After the national title game, DeBoer was not planning on leaving for another job, but Byrne loved how Kalen had won everywhere he went. DeBoer had won at every school he served as head coach at. He won 3 NAIA national titles and went 67-3 at Sioux Falls, with one of his losses coming in the 2007 title game, and the second coming in the NAIA semifinal in his first season in 2005, where they went 11-2. He then spent time as an offense coordinator for Southern Illinois, Eastern Michigan, Fresno State, and Indiana before being named the head coach at Fresno State in 2020, going 12-6 and turning that opportunity into the head coaching job at Washington, where he went 25-3 and lost in last year's national title game. He had a coaching career record at the time of 104-12 across 3 different jobs at 3 different levels of college football: the NAIA, the Group of 5, and the Pac-12. This job was probably going to be the toughest job he took, though, replacing Nick Saban, who developed a national title or bust mentality at Alabama. After 17 seasons, 206 wins, 9 SEC championships, and 6 national titles, DeBoer was going to be replacing one of, if not the greatest college football coach of all time. Byrne loved the answer DeBoer gave for his narrative of replacing a legendary head coach, saying he would embrace it and that there's only one person that's ever going to get to do that. Washington tried to hold on to DeBoer, offering him a $9 million contract extension during the season and a base salary of $9 million that would be maxed out at $9.6 million when the conversations with Bama began, but it was not enough. He explained, "We loved Washington, the people there, our players, everything we had accomplished in 2 years. But I also just loved everything about Greg Byrne and our conversation together and everything that Alabama stands for, the proud tradition of the program and how deep it runs." DeBoer was an outsider when he arrived, having grown up in South Dakota and never coaching in the Southeast. 2 of the Tide's most promising young players left within a week of DeBoer's hiring, safety Caleb Downs to Ohio State, and offensive tackle Caden Proctor to Iowa. Proctor, though, would ultimately return to Bama, though. 10 players entered the transfer portal in 9 days after Saban's announcement, and more than 25 did so over the course of the offseason. Yet he was able to hold on to the key pillars of the program: Tyler Booker, Deontay Lawson, Malachi Moore, and Jalen Milroe. Lawson explained, "We've embraced the change and, as a group, wanted to finish what we started. We're not running from change. We're buying in and know we're in good hands. We have full trust in Coach DeBoer and the coaches he's bringing in." DeBoer talked about the roster change, saying, "We had about 30 guys, and those are rough numbers, that have come into the program, and actually more than that when you count the guys coming in this summer. There was some attrition that needed to happen, and some of it was happening before I even got this job." DeBoer tried to bring back Travaris Robinson as his defensive coordinator, who had taken the co-defensive coordinator position at Georgia following Saban's retirement, would be unable to do so and instead brought in South Alabama head coach Kane Womack, who had coached with him at Indiana years before. South Alabama ranked 15th nationally in total defense in 2023 and tied for 27th in scoring defense. Originally, it looked like the offense coordinator Ryan Grubbs would follow DeBoer to Alabama, but instead he took the offense coordinator position with the Seattle Seahawks, and who also grabbed offensive line coach Scott Huff. He brought in Nick Sheridan as his offense coordinator and Jamarcus Shepard as his associate head coach and co-OC, both of which were on staff at Washington with DeBoer. He held on to Robert Gillespie and Freddie Roach from Saban's staff and brought in Buffalo head coach Maurice Linguist to be the co-defense coordinator with Womack. He put together an experienced staff for year 1. One of DeBoer's biggest recruiting wins was being able to hold on to wide receiver Ryan Williams, who reclassified and enrolled over the summer and is putting up video game numbers at the age of 17. DeBoer brought over a program from Washington that is now called Tide's Teammates, explaining the program, saying, "It's our way of lifting up a kid that maybe needs to be lifted up, doing our part to help them as they're going through cancer or anything else they may be fighting. I think we get more out of it than the kids. It reminds us that it's a privilege to play this game." The players loved the program and loved working with the kids involved in it, with Milroe explaining, "It's like that in everything we do, practice, meetings, or anything outside of football. You see how real Coach DeBoer is. He's always who he is, and he trusts us to be who we are. That's what every player wants." Most importantly, though, DeBoer has had the support of Saban, who is planning to go to as many Alabama games as a fan as he can this year. Saban told ESPN, "He knows how much I want to see him have success and the team have success, and the thing I've been most impressed with is that he's done it the way he's always done it, and the way he's been successful at doing it. I'm like all Alabama fans out there. I can't wait to see where he takes us." DeBoer hasn't changed who he always has been since coming to Alabama. He remembers his roots and is still the same guy who grew up on a farm in South Dakota. Kelvin Kroom, a longtime pastor at College Hill Baptist Church in Tuscaloosa, has been around the university for all the coaching transitions for the program since Bear Bryant retired in 1982, and believes this has been the smoothest transition, telling ESPN, "Coach Saban is excited and behind Coach DeBoer, and Coach DeBoer is secure enough to do it his way while still respecting what Coach Saban did before him. But it's like making scrambled eggs. We all can make them, and maybe we all do it a little differently. What matters is it comes out delicious." Bama's season is off to a delicious start with a 63-0 win over Western Kentucky in the season opener, followed by a 42-16 win over USF, where they pulled away late. Their most impressive win this season, though, has come against my Wisconsin Badgers, when they came into Camp Randall and routed us 42-10. Through it all, DeBoer stayed centered with Coach Womack, saying, The way he is able to keep the main thing amidst all the noise is something that I think served him well as a head coach, served him well as a coordinator. I think our players lean into that humble confidence that he shows in those moments. You don't take the Alabama job after Coach Saban if you don't have a certain level of confidence about you. But there's a level of humility that he carries himself, that I think Greg Byrne made the perfect hire in terms of what Kalen brings to the table for this team and carrying on the legacy that certainly Coach Saban has set, and then the other greats before him as well. DeBoer will face his first real test this season when Alabama hosts Georgia this week. His first ranked opponent, his first SEC matchup, and first major test as Alabama's head coach. At the time of recording, the weather may be sloppy as well from reports I've seen. After the Georgia game, they will still have tests against Tennessee, Missouri, LSU, and Oklahoma the remainder of the season. Milroe has been dominant in all 3 games, accounting for 8 passing touchdowns and 6 more on the ground. He's the nation's third-rated passer, having completed 35 of his 52 passes for 590 yards without throwing an interception. I don't know if DeBoer will ever match the success Saban found at Alabama. Spoiler, he probably won't, but through 3 games this season, he looks to be a home run hire, who should have Alabama in national title contention for years to come. What do you think? How would you rate the Kalen DeBoer hire so far? Let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out one of my other videos YouTube thinks you will love right here. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, remember to embrace the grind.